My name is Evelyn Harper, and I was 34 years old when my own mother locked my 9-year-old daughter outside during the worst storm our town had seen in years. For almost 3 hours, my little girl sat under a broken wooden porch behind an abandoned house, soaked from head to toe, shaking so badly she could not even say her own name when the police found her. She was 9. She had no jacket, no phone, no shoes. And the people who were supposed to protect her were sitting inside a warm house, pretending she had brought it all on herself. They said she had stolen something precious. They said she had lied. They said she needed to learn a lesson. But what they did not know was that I had already come back home. They did not know I was only 15 minutes away. And they definitely did not know that before sunrise I would make one phone call that would change every single thing they thought they controlled. I had spent most of my life trying to escape my family without admitting that was what I was doing. My mother, Margaret Harper, was the kind of woman everyone in town respected. At church, she smiled softly, volunteered for every food drive, and called everyone sweetheart. People thought she was gentle. People thought she was kind. But inside our house, kindness was something she gave only when someone was watching. My father had passed away when I was 17, and after that, my mother became even harder. She believed family loyalty meant silence. She believed children should obey adults no matter what. And she believed reputation mattered more than truth. My older sister, Vanessa, understood that better than anyone. Vanessa had always been the favorite. She married young, stayed close to home, gave my mother her first grandson, and never questioned anything. Her son, Mason, was treated like royalty from the day he was born. My daughter, Sophie, was different. Sophie was quiet, sensitive, the kind of child who noticed when someone was sad and drew them a picture. Instead of asking too many questions, she had big brown eyes, curly hair that never stayed tied, and a habit of carrying a small notebook everywhere because she loved drawing houses. Not people. Not animals. Houses. When I asked her why, she once said, "Because houses are supposed to keep people safe." I should have understood then how much safety mattered to her. I was a traveling surgical equipment coordinator, and my work sometimes sent me out of state for weeks at a time. It was not glamorous, but it paid the bills, gave Sophie health insurance, and allowed me to build a life away from my mother's control. Then came the assignment in Arizona. 6 months. Good money. A promotion if I completed it. I did not want to leave Sophie, but the project would change everything for us. I could finally afford a better apartment, a better school district, maybe even a small house of our own. My mother offered before I asked. "Bring Sophie here," she said. "She is my granddaughter. Of course I'll take care of her." I wanted to believe her. That was my mistake. Sophie moved into my mother's house at the beginning of August. I sent money every month for food, clothes, school supplies, anything she needed. My mother told me everything was fine. "She's adjusting," she would say. But every time I video called Sophie, something felt wrong. At first it was small. She spoke less. She smiled less. She looked away from the camera before answering simple questions. "How was school, baby?" "Fine." "What did you eat today?" "Dinner." "Are you having fun with Mason?" Silence. Then my mother would step into frame and say, "She's just tired, Evelyn. Don't interrogate the child." I believed it for a while, because believing it was easier than facing what my heart already knew. Then Sophie stopped calling my mother Grandma. She started saying, "Mrs. Harper." The first time I heard it, my chest tightened. "Why did you call Grandma that?" I asked. Sophie looked behind the camera. My mother's voice came from somewhere nearby. "Because your daughter is being dramatic?" Sophie looked down and whispered, "I have to go." The call ended. That night, I could not sleep. The next morning, I called Sophie's school. Her teacher, Mrs. Larkin, sounded relieved to hear from me. "I'm glad you called," she said carefully. "Sophie is a very sweet child, but she has become extremely withdrawn." Withdrawn. That word stayed with me. Mrs. Larkin told me Sophie ate lunch alone. She no longer played at recess. She flinched when adults raised their voices. She had started drawing the same picture again and again. A small girl standing outside a house. Everyone else inside. I asked if Mason was at the same school. "Yes," she said. "He seems very confident, very social." Then she paused. "And Sophie seems afraid of upsetting him." That was the moment I knew. Not guessed. Knew. Something was happening in that house. I started collecting everything. Emails from the teacher. Screenshots of strange messages from my mother. Short calls with Sophie, photos she sent me. One photo broke me. It was from Mason's birthday party. There were balloons, a cake, gifts, cousins, neighbors, my mother. Smiling proudly, beside Mason, in the corner of the photo, almost hidden behind a chair, Sophie was sitting alone with a paper plate on her lap. No one was looking at her. No one was sitting with her. No one even seemed to notice she was there. 2 months later, Sophie's birthday came. My mother sent one picture, Sophie at the kitchen table with a cupcake, no candles, no decorations, no friends, just one cupcake and a forced smile. When I called my mother, I asked why Mason had a full party, and Sophie got almost nothing. My mother sighed. "Evelyn, Mason lives here. Sophie is only staying temporarily." Temporarily. That word cut deeper than she knew, because my daughter, in silence, me was not a guest. She was a child who deserved love, whether she was temporary or permanent. 3 weeks after that, I requested to return early from the assignment. I told my supervisor there was a family emergency developing. I did not tell my mother. I did not tell Vanessa. I flew back quietly on a Wednesday morning. I checked into a motel 15 minutes from my mother's house. Then I went straight to Sophie's school. Mrs. Larkin met me in the office with a folder. Inside were copies of Sophie's drawings. August, Sophie, Grandma, Mason, and Aunt Vanessa standing together. September, Mason and Grandma inside the house. Sophie outside. October, a woman with a big angry mouth. A little girl crying. November, a boy holding something shiny. A girl being pointed at. December. A small girl under heavy rain. At the bottom of that drawing, Sophie had written, "I wish Mommy knew." I sat in that school office holding the paper, and for the first time in years, I hated myself for trolling my mother. Mrs. Larkin told me Sophie had mentioned blaming her for things: a broken plate, missing money, a spilled bottle of juice, a cracked tablet screen. Every time Mason said Sophie did it. Every time my mother believed him. And every time Sophie denied it, she was punished for lying. I drove to my mother's street that afternoon and parked 2 houses away. At 3:20, Mason got off the school bus. My mother came outside with an umbrella even though it was only drizzling. She hugged him, took his backpack, and walked him inside. At 3:35, Sophie got off the second bus. No one came outside. She walked up the driveway alone. She knocked on the door. My daughter knocked on the door of the house she was living in. My mother opened it, said something I could not hear, and Sophie lowered her head before stepping inside. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my hands hurt. I wanted to run in. I wanted to take her right then. But I needed proof, because my mother was respected, Vanessa was believed, and I was the daughter who had left. I knew exactly how they would tell the story if I acted too soon. They would say I was unstable. They would say I abandoned Sophie and then came back, causing drama. They would say my mother had sacrificed everything while I chased my career. So I waited. That night, the storm came. It started around 7. Heavy rain. Wind. Thunder so loud, it shook the motel windows. I was sitting on the bed with Sophie's drawings spread out in front of me when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Is this Evelyn Harper? Yes, this is Officer Daniel Reeves with the Fairview Police Department. We have your daughter. Sophie Harper. For a second, the room disappeared. What happened? She was found outside during the storm. She's being transported to Mercy General Hospital. I do not remember grabbing my keys. I do not remember leaving the motel. I only remember driving through rain, so heavy. The road looked like glass. When I reached the hospital, a nurse led me to a small room. Sophie was lying under warm blankets. Her lips were pale. Her hair was wet. Her feet were scratched and bleeding. When she saw me, her face crumbled. Mommy? I went to her bed and held her hand. I'm here, baby. I'm here now. She started crying then, not loud, not dramatic, just broken, the kind of crying a child does when she has been holding fear inside for too long. A social worker came in 20 minutes later. Her name was Dana Mills. She asked me who had been responsible for Sophie that night. My mother, I said. Margaret Harper. She asked if I knew why Sophie had been outside. I looked at my daughter. Sophie whispered. Grandma said, thieves don't sleep in her house. My whole body went cold. Dana wrote that down. Then Sophie told us everything. Mason had taken my mother's antique silver bracelet from her jewelry box and put it inside Sophie's backpack. He had done it before dinner. Sophie had seen him. But when she tried to tell my mother, Vanessa said, there she goes lying again. My mother searched Sophie's bag, found the bracelet, and decided that was all the proof she needed. Sophie begged her to listen. My mother refused. Vanessa told her, maybe if she spends one night scared, she'll learn respect. Then my mother opened the front door and told Sophie to leave, in the storm, at night, without shoes, without a jacket, without a phone. Sophie walked until she found the back porch of an abandoned house and crawled underneath it. That was where Officer Reeves found her after a neighbor called 911 about a child crying in the rain. The next morning, Child Protective Services opened a formal investigation. My mother arrived at the hospital at 9. Vanessa came with her. They walked into the room, expecting to take control. Then they saw me sitting beside Sophie's bed. My mother froze. Vanessa's eyes widened. You're supposed to be in Arizona, my mother said. I came home early. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Vanessa recovered first. This is being blown out of proportion, she said. Sophie has been difficult for months. I stood up slowly. She was found under an abandoned porch in a thunderstorm. My mother's face turned red. She stole from me. No, I said. She didn't. Mason saw her. Sophie saw Mason put it in her bag. Vanessa snapped. Are you really going to believe her over a boy who has never caused problems? I looked at her and said, yes, I'm going to believe my daughter. A nurse stepped into the doorway and asked them to leave because they were upsetting the patient. My mother began crying, not because Sophie was hurt, because people were watching. That afternoon, Officer Reeves took Sophie's statement. CPS interviewed the neighbor who had called 911. The neighbor said she saw my mother open the door and point outside. She heard my mother say, "Get out. I will not shelter a thief." That sentence became part of the official report. 2 days later, Mason was interviewed by a child specialist. At first, he repeated the lie. Then his story changed. Then it changed again. Finally, he broke. He admitted he had taken the bracelet. He admitted he put it in Sophie's backpack. And then he said the words that destroyed Vanessa's perfect image. Mom said, if Sophie got in big trouble, Grandma might send her away. Vanessa denied everything. Of course she did. But Mason had said it in front of the investigator, and my mother could no longer pretend this was just family discipline. 3 weeks later, we sat in family court. My mother wore her church pearls. Vanessa sat beside her lawyer with her arms crossed. I sat with Sophie's drawings, school reports, hospital records, police notes, and every message I had saved. The judge read quietly for several minutes. No one spoke. Then he looked at my mother. "Mrs. Harper, do you understand that a child was placed in serious danger because of your actions?" My mother started crying. "I made a mistake." The judge's face did not change. A mistake is forgetting to pack a lunch. Locking a 9-year-old child outside during a severe storm is not a mistake. It is neglect. Vanessa tried to speak. The judge stopped her, and encouraging a child to frame another child is emotional abuse. Vanessa went pale. The final order gave me full custody. My mother was allowed only supervised visitation. Vanessa was not allowed contact until Sophie's therapist approved it. Mason was ordered into counseling. When we walked out of court, my mother reached for my arm. "Evelyn, please. We're family." I looked at her hand, then at her face. "You remembered that too late." Sophie and I moved into a small apartment 2 towns over. It was not fancy, but it was ours. Her room had yellow curtains, a white desk, and a little lamp shaped like a moon. The first night there, she drew a picture, a small house, 2 people inside, a mother and daughter holding hands, no one outside, no rain. At the bottom, she wrote, "Home." That was when I finally cried. Not because of what we lost, because of what we survived. People think protecting your child means feeding them, clothing them, giving them a roof. But sometimes protecting your child means taking them away from people who share your blood. Sometimes it means standing in court against your own mother. Sometimes it means letting the whole town talk. And sometimes it means coming home quietly, collecting the truth, and letting the people who hurt your child face what they thought they could hide. My mother thought Sophie was powerless. Vanessa thought her son's lie would be believed forever. But they forgot one thing. A child may be quiet. A child may be scared. A child may not know how to fight back. But a mother knows. And when a mother finally sees the truth, no storm, no family name, no lie, and no locked door can stop her from bringing her child home.